Hi there everyone, Alice here from Just Films and That. I went to see Dune Part 2, so here is my spoiler-free review of that film. And just to preface this whole thing, I am coming at this from the point of view of someone who hasn't read the book. So we'll start with the likes, and these are many, so I probably won't be able to cover everything, but essentially a lot of the things I liked about this film are similar to what I liked about the first film. So the way it looks, the way it sounds, some of the character development and performances. We go a bit deeper into Fremen life in this one, which was pretty great as well, and you've got some great combat and battle sequences in here. So just to dive in a little deeper about how it looks, when I say it looks good, I mean that in every cinematic aspect possible. The camera work, the framing, the shot selection, the use of shadow, the costume, props and set design, and just the general aesthetic of the whole thing. It's incredible. This film frequently demonstrates an understanding of what makes a dramatic image with exceptional attention to detail. It feels like everything from the colour to the positioning of the actors has been considered and perfected, and the results are just marvellous. One of the ways that the Fremen fight is by burying themselves in the sand and then coming out from under when the time is right. And I never get tired of looking at this. It's such a chilling image and is a great example of coming up against that unseen enemy, and each time it's brilliantly executed. The character development in this is really strong, as well as how the narrative progresses. So we've got Jessica, who is our protagonist's mum, played by Rebecca Ferguson, and she really amps up the intensity in this. Like in the first film, she's pretty darn intense, dramatic and ruthless. And this time she takes it to a whole new level as she becomes even more powerful and more sure of herself. And similar can be said for Paul Atreides, so that's Chalamet. Though as we follow his love story with Zendaya's character Chani, we do see some softness to him and a more human side, which makes his dramatic moments have even more of an impact. He goes full on Eren Yeager in terms of what his character has to deal with and also his response to these things. He has some conflict about who he is and what he stands for, which does slowly diminish as the film goes on, and he becomes a lot more convinced by the prophecy. And the moments where he shows this are incredibly powerful and some of the best moments in the film. It's kind of awe-inspiring and terrifying at the same time for the people around him and for you as the viewer. We've got a lot of new additions in there as well, so the two that really stand out for me are Christopher Walken as the Emperor, who they do use sparingly but to great effect, and is obviously just a hilarious bit of casting. If you know, you know. And Austin Butler, who is Fade Rather, apologies, I'm not 100% on the pronunciation, but he is the nephew of Baron Harkonnen, and he's quite a fearsome, psychotic kind of guy with absolutely no chill whatsoever, and he's fabulous, and we get some great combat from him, and it has been really nicely choreographed. The soundscape, once again, is incredible. Not just the score, but the sound effects and the Foley are all on point, and they use sound a lot for tension building and to evoke strong feelings of triumph or great peril. In terms of anything I didn't like, well, the biggest disappointment for me is that they reveal in the trailer that Gurney Halleck is still alive. I felt very strongly about the fact that they should have saved this for the film even before seeing it, and now having seen the film, I believe this even more so. The moment where he and Paul are reunited would have been absolutely perfect for this to have been the reveal for the audience that he is still with us. And I'm honestly so disappointed at the missed opportunity. You'll know when you see it, but basically, I recognise your footsteps, old man. I also feel that the script in this was a lot less nuanced and a bit more Hollywood, for lack of a better term. The dialogue in the first film really isn't that plentiful, to the point where the film does feel a lot more abstract or experimental, but that wasn't really the case with this one. This film felt a lot more preoccupied with getting the audience up to speed and making sure it doesn't lose them, which I do completely understand, and if you remember, I did say this about the first film, but the viewing experience is certainly enriched if you've done wider reading around the story, around the characters, or, you know, just read the book. So maybe they're trying to remedy that, but in general with this one, I felt a lot more aware that I was watching a film, whereas with the first one, I felt much more absorbed in the world and thought it felt so much more real. You know, as real as these things can feel. So at the time of recording, Dune Part 2 gets a 9 out of 10 on IMDb. Then over on Rotten Tomatoes, it gets a 93% from the critics and 96% from the audience, but these scores have already changed a few times over the past few days. Now, I do actually think that that is a bit overrated, because I think the first film is better, and that gets an 8 on IMDb and 83% from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes and 90% from the audience. I believe the differences in the two aren't too dissimilar to something like The Fellowship of the Ring and The Two Towers, where the first one is focused on the world building and the character introductions and establishing relationships and really draws you into the world, where the second one is more about the big fights, and so everything is leading up to that, so you can kind of predict the next move and certain things just have to happen and there isn't as much mystery or intrigue. Listen, Dune Part 2 is a great film. From a technical point of view, it's outstanding, and I would definitely say it's well worth your time. But the first one is better, in my opinion. Well, that's it from me for now, but don't forget you can catch our regular episodes about underrated and underseen films every Tuesday. Bye!